Every morning you wake up with a decision, not just to start your day, but to start your life again. Most people open their eyes, grab their phone, scroll through chaos, and wonder why they feel empty before breakfast. But those who truly live, those who rise, they use the morning as their launch pad, not a snooze button. This is not about coffee. It's about conscious creation. Because the first 10 minutes of your morning shape the next 10 hours of your life. You can stay the same, repeating, reacting, recycling old emotions, or you can ignite a new reality before the world even wakes up. Every sunrise whispers, you have another chance. The question is, will you answer it, or will you let it fade away like yesterday's excuses? Today, I'm going to show you how to seize that sacred moment, how to build your life one morning at a time. Because transformation doesn't happen someday. It happens every day when your feet hit the floor and you decide, today, I become unstoppable. The first hour of your morning is the steering wheel of your entire day. It decides whether you're in control or being controlled. Most people stumble into their mornings like passengers on a bus they didn't mean to board, scrolling, reacting, rushing. But the truth is, how you spend those first 60 minutes sets the tone, energy, and emotional frequency of everything that follows. If you start with chaos, you carry chaos. If you start with clarity, you carry purpose. That first hour isn't just time, it's power. It's the foundation upon which your mindset, emotions, and actions are built. Every man and woman carries an inner thermostat for their emotional state, and that thermostat is set in the morning. For men, the morning often determines their sense of direction, their mission. When they wake up and immediately react to the world, they unconsciously give up leadership over their own mind. For women, the morning can shape the emotional atmosphere of their day, their sense of balance, creativity, and inner harmony. When they wake up centered and grounded, they radiate strength and certainty to everyone around them. But when the morning starts in distraction or anxiety, the day follows suit. The point is simple: the energy you create before the world touches you is the energy that defines your influence, your productivity, and your emotional state. When you wake up, you either program your mind or it gets programmed for you. The moment you open your eyes, your brain is in a highly suggestible state. What you feed it becomes your direction. Most people feed it fear, comparison, and noise. But leaders, creators, and those who live with intention use that moment to feed their minds something different: gratitude, focus, and vision. They speak to themselves before the world speaks to them. They decide what kind of energy they'll live in instead of letting circumstances decide for them. That's what owning your first hour means. Designing your inner state before the outer world gets a vote. You don't need a perfect routine, you need a powerful decision. A decision to move your body, to breathe deeply, to silence the noise, to speak life into your own future. That decision changes your biochemistry. It wakes your power up. When a man moves with purpose early in the morning, he reclaims his edge, his drive, his focus. When a woman sets her intention early, she reconnects to her emotional core, her intuition, her resilience, her light. Both are equally powerful forces, but both require the same thing: a choice to step into the day as the creator, not the reactor. Every morning you're given the same blank canvas. Some paint with distraction, others with discipline. Some fill it with noise, others with nourishment. The difference between those who drift and those who dominate isn't luck, it's the first hour. Because when you own your first hour, you don't just own the day, you own your emotions, your energy, your focus, your life. There's a silent power in waking up before the rest of the world, before the noise, before the distractions, before your own limits even realize you're awake. That moment when it's just you in the quiet is where your strength is built. Most people never experience it because they're too comfortable with comfort. They wake up already late, already stressed, already reacting to life instead of creating it. But those who rise early don't just wake up earlier than others. They wake up earlier than their excuses, their doubts, and their limitations. The earlier you rise, the earlier you take command of your mind, your emotions, and your mission. The human brain loves predictability and safety. For men, that often shows up as resistance. The body says stay in bed, but the deeper part of them craves victory, discipline, and progress. When a man rises before his limits wake up, he's telling his subconscious, I run this show. It's not about time. It's about identity. It's about proving to yourself that you're stronger than your moods, stronger than comfort, stronger than the voice that says 5 more minutes. That small victory sets the tone for every bigger victory that follows. Each early rise builds confidence, resilience, and mental clarity that no motivation video can give. For women, the morning carries a different but equally powerful energy. Rising early allows them to connect with calm before the chaos of the day tries to claim it. When a woman rises before her limits wake up, she's protecting her peace, her emotional energy, her intuition. It's her moment to breathe, to center herself, to nurture her power before the demands of the world begin pulling at her. That early stillness isn't weakness, it's strategy. It's how she builds emotional armor without hardening her heart. It's how she leads her day with grace, focus, and quiet strength. Limits aren't real walls, they're lazy thoughts dressed as logic. They tell you you're too tired, too busy, too overwhelmed, and they sound convincing when you're half asleep. But if you rise before those thoughts have a chance to talk you out of your potential, you gain something priceless: momentum. That momentum doesn't just carry you through the morning, it carries you through the storms of life. Because when you learn to beat your own resistance before the day even begins, you start winning battles most people never fight. There's something deeply human, almost primal, about claiming that early hour. It reconnects you to your instincts, to the part of you that was built for challenge and growth. The man who rises before his limits becomes more decisive, more centered, more powerful. The woman who rises before her limits becomes more grounded, more confident, more radiant. Both find the same truth in different ways. Your power doesn't come from what you do when it's easy. It comes from what you do when the bed is warm, the world is quiet, and your limits are still asleep. That's when you build the version of yourself that no one can stop. The moment you open your eyes, your mind is hungry. It's looking for direction, Emotion and meaning. What you feed it in those first few minutes decides how you think, how you feel, and how you perform for the rest of the day. Most people don't even realize that their mornings are being hijacked by noise, notifications, headlines, messages, endless distractions that train the brain to react instead of create. But when you consciously feed your mind before the world feeds you noise, you take back control of your state. You stop being a passenger in your own mind and start becoming the driver of your life. Your mind is like fertile soil. Whatever you plant first in the morning grows strongest throughout the day. For men, that means planting thoughts that create focus, purpose, and progress. The masculine mind thrives on direction. It needs something to aim at. If a man starts his day with negativity or comparison, he unconsciously builds frustration and confusion into his foundation. But when he starts with powerful input, whether that's reading, visualizing, or simply setting an intention, he creates mental clarity and emotional certainty that becomes the edge that separates him from the average. He's no longer reacting to the noise of the world, he's projecting his own signal into it. For women, the first input of the day deeply influences emotional balance and confidence. The feminine mind is highly intuitive and emotionally receptive. It feels energy before it thinks logic. That's why beginning the day with calm gratitude and empowering thoughts isn't luxury, it's essential. When a woman nourishes her mind before the world demands from her, she sets her emotional frequency high. Instead of being pulled into other people's caves, she becomes the source of calm, strength, and influence. She doesn't absorb the world's noise, she transcends it. That's real power, not just outer success, but inner command. The brain doesn't distinguish between what's real and what's repeated. If you begin your morning by scrolling through problems, arguments, and fear-driven news, your subconscious starts to believe the world is chaotic, dangerous, and hopeless. But if you feed it gratitude, goals, and empowering thoughts, it begins to believe the world is abundant, full of opportunity, and worth showing up for. This is not motivational fluff, it's neuroconditioning. Every morning, you are literally programming your brain for either peace or panic. The question is, who's holding the remote, you or the world? Your energy is a reflection of what you consume. If you feed your mind junk, you'll feel foggy, reactive, and tired. But when you feed it focused discipline and inspiration, you build mental strength the same way your body builds muscle. You become unshakable because you're no longer living from reaction, you're living from design. Every man and woman who masters their mornings understands this truth. The world will always try to feed you noise, but if you choose what you consume first, you choose who you become next. Energy without direction is wasted potential. Every morning, you're given a surge of raw energy, physical, emotional, and mental, that determines how the rest of your day unfolds. What most people do is burn that energy through distraction. They scroll, they worry, they think instead of move. But those who understand momentum know that energy is meant to be used, not observed. When you channel that morning energy into action, you create forward motion that compounds throughout the day. The secret isn't to wait until you feel ready, it's to move first and let the movement create the feeling. The body is the ignition switch for the mind. For men, movement in the morning connects directly to focus and confidence. When a man moves his body, whether through exercise, breath work, or even a few minutes of still strength, he activates the chemistry of progress. His physiology shifts, his focus sharpens, his sense of control expands. The masculine mind thrives on challenge and momentum. The moment he proves to himself that he can conquer small resistance early in the day, he builds the emotional muscle to conquer bigger resistance later. The act of pushing himself physically is not about fitness. It's about identity. It's a reminder that he's not built to be passive, he's built to pursue, to advance, to lead. For women, the connection between morning energy and momentum flows through emotion and presence. When a woman takes time in the morning to align her energy through stillness, intention, or gentle movement, she activates her natural rhythm of strength and calm. The feminine mind operates on emotional momentum. When it feels grounded and empowered early on, it carries that energy through everything she touches. Her relationships, her focus, her creativity all rise from that stable emotional core. She doesn't have to force energy, she channels it. Her momentum comes from harmony, not haste, and that creates a flow that is both powerful and sustainable. Momentum doesn't come from doing everything. It comes from starting something. The moment you take one action, no matter how small, you begin to shift from inertia to influence. Your brain rewards you with dopamine, the chemical of progress, which makes you want to keep going. That's how winners build consistency. They don't wait for inspiration, they manufacture it through movement. Whether you're a man or a woman, your morning routine is your launch sequence. Each intentional action, your breath, your words, your focus, builds pressure behind the rocket of your day until it breaks through the atmosphere of fear and hesitation. Energy is meant to move forward, not circle back into overthinking. When you start your morning with purpose and direction, you transform that natural surge of energy into lasting drive. You stop leaking power through doubt and hesitation. Instead, you turn your inner state into motion. Momentum that carries you through challenges, decisions, and distractions. That's how the day stops controlling you and you start controlling the day. Every morning you are repeating something, either the habits that build you or the patterns that break you. Most people think they're stuck because life won't change, but the truth is they're just rehearsing the same thoughts, emotions, and actions that keep them trapped. The mind loves repetition. It clings to what's familiar even when that familiarity is painful. But power doesn't come from repeating what's familiar. It comes from repeating what moves you forward. Every day is a fresh chance to stop recycling the old version of yourself and start reinforcing the one you're becoming. The difference between patterns and power lies in intention. Patterns are automatic, they run you. Power is deliberate, you run it. For men, patterns often show up as cycles of distraction or frustration. The masculine mind seeks progress, but when progress feels unclear, it defaults to comfort, scrolling, overthinking, procrastinating. When a man repeats those habits, he loses respect for himself because his actions don't align with his potential. But when he interrupts the pattern and chooses strength, when he commits to a workout, a plan, a purpose, he reclaims his edge. That act of choosing differently, even once, rewires the brain to associate discomfort with growth instead of pain. That's how he starts repeating power, not the same excuses. For women, patterns often form around emotional energy. The feminine mind feels deeply and remembers emotionally. When she wakes up replaying the worries, doubts, or comparisons from yesterday, she unknowingly sets the emotional tone for today. But when she recognizes that awareness is power, when she interrupts that emotional loop and replaces it with gratitude, breath, or clarity, she shifts her entire state. She moves from reaction to creation. Every time she chooses her peace over her past, she reinforces her strength. That's how emotional intelligence becomes emotional mastery, not by avoiding feelings, but by redirecting them with purpose. The brain doesn't know the difference between practice and performance. It only knows what you repeat. Every morning you are conditioning yourself, consciously or not. If you keep rehearsing stress, self-doubt, or chaos, you're building emotional muscles that keep you stuck. But if you repeat focus, gratitude, and decisive action, you build a state of power that becomes automatic. It's not about doing everything perfectly. It's about doing one thing powerfully and doing it consistently. Over time, those small intentional repetitions become who you are. You don't break patterns by fighting them. You replace them with stronger ones. You install new emotional and mental codes that support your evolution. Each time you rise, move, and choose power instead of pattern, you send a message to your nervous system. This is who I am now. That's how transformation actually happens, not in one massive breakthrough, but in the disciplined repetition of strength over comfort, focus over distraction, and growth over habit. Every morning becomes your training ground, and every decision becomes your declaration that you are no longer repeating your limits, you're repeating your power. Every morning, life hands you a blank canvas, and the first decision you make is who you're going to be that day. Most people never consciously decide. They wake up and slip into the same identity they wore yesterday. They become their habits, their moods, their memories. But identity is not fixed. It's chosen, built, and reinforced daily. The most powerful truth you can live by is that you are not your past. You are your pattern of decisions. Each sunrise gives you another chance to choose the version of yourself that aligns with your potential, not your history. The mind naturally gravitates toward what it knows, even if what it knows isn't serving you. For men, this means waking up already wearing the armor of yesterday's failures or frustrations. They carry unfinished emotions into a new day, which keeps them fighting the same internal battles. But when a man decides who he will be, not what he will do, but who he will show up as, his energy changes instantly. He stops being reactive and starts being intentional. He begins to lead his emotions instead of being led by them. That moment of conscious choice becomes a spark that ignites focus, strength, and confidence before he ever steps out the door. For women, the morning decision often revolves around emotional alignment and self-worth. The feminine psychology thrives on connection, not just to others, but to self. When a woman wakes up and decides to embody calm, power, and grace, she creates emotional resonance that shapes her entire day. She no longer waits for validation or circumstances to define her mood. She claims her energy, her voice, and her standard. That choice made in silence before the day begins is what gives her presence its power. It's not about perfection. It's about owning who she is becoming and refusing to let the world decide that for her. Every day, the identity you live from determines the quality of your decisions. If you identify as someone overwhelmed, you'll act overwhelmed. If you see yourself as powerful, your mind and body will organize around that belief. The human nervous system is a mirror. It reflects whatever identity you feed it. That's why morning identity rituals are life-changing, whether it's through affirmations, visualization, movement, or meditation. What you tell yourself in those first moments becomes your command to the subconscious. You are literally programming the emotional software that runs your day. The difference between those who drift and those who dominate their lives is that the latter decide who they are before the world decides for them. Each morning is a declaration. You can wake up as the same person, or you can wake up as the person who creates, leads, and evolves. That decision is where transformation begins, in the quiet and the choice. And the moment you look at yourself and say, this is who I choose to be today, because identity isn't found, it's forged, rebuilt, and renewed every single morning.